wanted to open up the floor. I know you have some very unique and interesting stories of on your spiritual path, and so I really wanted you to share with the others who might watch or be listening on perhaps it may be on your spiritual work, maybe an interesting story of your spiritual journey. And especially so, I know, Cheryl, that you go often out to the Carmen Gay Medicine Wheel. And if you had stories about that, we would love to hear about that as well. I know that you've had spiritual journeys on your path in Switzerland. So I'm just going to open up the floor for you, Cheryl, and we're wanting to hear your experiences that you'd like to share with us. And just share from your heart, whatever you feel called.
My story is a very dark one. It started out very young with a lot of negativity and darkness. And there was alcoholism and abuse that started with 2.5 years already. And, you know, a lot of stuff going on. But when I was a small child, I used to see things, and I would talk to my great-grandmother, who was Cree. And she would tell me, "You're not allowed to say that. You can't talk to people like that. They don't understand you." So years went by, more abuse and more darkness, and I lost my connection. And I fell into the darkness as well. And it's still got a hold of me. You know, it's so brutal and so profound. I just can't describe it. It still has me, and when I talk about it, it feels like it's got me by the throat. You know, it's taking the air out of me. So I've fought like hell over all these years to find ways to keep climbing back up. And I've reached high plateaus where I've been doing so well spiritually, and I fell right down again. And it was just horrible. I've been searching probably for 30 years to find something that I can grab onto and have a hold. And I finally got it. And it's a mixture of different methods, but it works for me. And I feel so blessed. And I'm so grateful. I'm sorry.
That's fine. Take your time.
I use an eagle feather that I earned from going to college, studying child and youth care and FASD program when I was well over 50, because I knew I had to come back to Canada. I'd lived 23 years in Switzerland, and I knew I had to come back to Canada to help my ancestry, my mother's folk. They're having quite a lot of trouble here, the Aboriginal women especially. I grew up with it, so I know what it's all about. Also, they are not respected, not at all, even a half-breed like myself. We're worthless, and it's led to a lot of problems in this country. You know, like how can you murder a Native woman and just walk away from it? You know, isn't she worth something too? You know, so this got me thinking in Switzerland, and I realized I felt a very strong pull. I have to come back. I'm part of this. And actually, we'll go back to when I was a teenager. The hippies started happening, as you were talking about before. And I knew I was part of that. It was like I'm about 10 years younger than some of the older hippies, but I developed that lifestyle and that way of thought. I didn't care what anybody thought about me in that. I knew love was the answer, and that's all I knew. And so I tried very hard to live that. But it's hard when you're living in darkness and things are pretty black and bleak. I kept it up and I kept trying. I also heard about the Cree prophecy of the Rainbow Warriors, and I knew deep in my heart I was part of that too. So it's all tied together. And so I came back to Canada, and I'm here, and I'm in an abusive situation again. I'm thinking, how do I get out of this? Well, I go to school. I move. Simple as that. Had no money, had nothing. But I got funding through the Alberta government, and I started. And I moved. So things started happening. And but as I was taking the courses, I started to heal, because some really huge, well, I was run over by stuff, let's put it that way, and it's like a huge dam burst. I couldn't stop crying. I'd cry all day long some days, you know, it's just so horrible. But I can't say I felt depressed. It was just healing, and I knew it, and I had to let it happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I found going to the medicine wheel was, it brought me immediate answers. I would ask questions, and I got answers within a day. And they were in a life-shaking way, not just a simple little quiet whisper. You know, it was incredible. And I knew I found my sacred space. And when I can, I go back there. And when I've got major issues, I feel so at home there. And there was once, though, I had a really bad experience where I was sitting and praying, and I could see spirits flying around me over my head, and they were angry. And I just said, I'm sorry if I'm disturbing you. I'm not going to harm you, or, you know, I don't want anything from you. And please leave me be, because I have every right to be here as well as you are. And what I'm using here is the energy, and that's it. And that's how I basically spoke to them. And they were mad, but they left me alone. And I was able to calm down, because it was scary, and continue with my, and things turned out fine. Then I got my eagle feather. Actually, before that, I got my grandfather's eagle feather. That's my mother's father. Now, he was Cree and Sioux, and he earned his eagle feather from being in the Second World War. He had saved a lieutenant's life, and he also got a, I can't remember what they call it, some kind of an honor medal. I can't remember what the Canadians call it, but I think it's a Purple Heart or something like that, or Order of, well, whatever. Anyway, I was in Switzerland, and I had big troubles, and life was very bleak. I also had huge health problems. I was living already a full month with a heavy brain concussion because I'd fell down a huge flight of stairs. And it was really, really difficult. And I was taking morphine daily, twice a day, to battle the headache. But I knew this is not good for me. I have to do something else. So I thought, what? And then bingo, the answer came to me. Use my grandfather's eagle feather and run it over my aura for protection and to help me to heal. And I did that for 30 full days, every morning. Yeah, and it worked.
Nice.
I could feel it after 2 or 3 days already. I was able to leave the medication on the side, you know,
Nice.
and so on. So I realized, and that happened, this was 2005, I'm in a place where I'm starting to be the old Cheryl again. I'm connecting with that, what I had when I was little, because I've always had a two-way speech with the Great Spirit. And it was great. And I started to feel some hope after that. But it took time. So what I have for rituals now are, there's many, and there's different ones. I use crystals, I use sage, I smudge, I use sea salt and water, which I've been taught by shamans. And actually that's something they do in Europe. And I'd forgotten all about that.
Nice.
You go into a new home and they give you the gift of sea salt. And you're to spread it around in the 4 corners in the house and then vacuum it up.
Nice.
And on your doorstep too. And throw it over your back, because then you're dishonoring the negative energy. You're telling it to leave. You know, I don't care what you do, but you go, you know.
Nice.
But I'd forgotten that. And see, when a person gets tied up in your troubles, you do forget so much.
Absolutely.
It's horrible. But yeah, and it takes sometimes people to come into your life to remind you, you know, these wonderful things. So it's cool. I practice a lot of Tibetan spirituality, and this is at your heart level. You put your head down, and it's called Namaste, or in Nepalese, Namaskar. That's the way they say it.
Very
It means,
nice.
I honor the place in you that is the same as in me. So we are all one. And I practice Tibetan chants and stuff like that. And I've been doing yoga since I was 14.
Very nice.
I read oracle cards. I have a pendulum. I've had this for years. One has to be careful with all that stuff because the dark energy can get in there too. And in the midst of reading a reading, I realized, oh, that's not for me. You know, so throw that away and start over, you know.
Yes.
I don't do oracles very often because of that reason, because this dark energy still has a way to get into me. However, I do feel when the spirit has came into me, I start swaying, and I feel light and happy, and it's a wonderful feeling.
Nice.
In Switzerland, I was just visiting my children. There are 3 grown children. This past fall, my daughter took me to a place that is a known, now I'm thinking in German, I'm sorry. It's a known vortex. And according to the spiritualistic people, the way the hills are, it's a pregnant woman lying on her side, and right where her pregnant tummy is a cemetery for children that died. There's a castle, and the castle is above, and that's her head. And this is in the Dark Ages when this all happened. These children died because they were misused, or worked too hard, or just no worth to their life. It's horrible. But my daughter is studying spiritualism as well, and she was setting up an altar, and her and I were going to pray, and she was going to take me to a special place where she knew I would be happy. And as she's setting up the altar, a flock of birds came by, little tiny birds, and they were talking to me. They looked down at me and said, "Thank you." And I looked at them and I said, "You're welcome." And my daughter said to me, "Mom, what are you doing?" And I said, they were talking to me. They were all beep, 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 saying, "Thank you, thank you, thank you," all at once. There was like about 20 or 30 of them. And she says, "Really? How could you know that?" And so she told me the story about these children dying, and these birds went right to that cemetery, right in front of our eyes.
Nice.
It was beautiful.
Wow.
And then we started walking up the hill, and I could feel pushing, almost physical, like somebody was pushing me in the chest and not to go up there. And I have this darkness, which I call the saboteur, and I just said, "No, I'm going." And just pushed back and went. And Rainey said, "Holy crow, what happened there?" I said, "That was quite a fight, actually." But I got going. So we went on into this place called Stairway to Heaven. And it was just a little pathway going up the hill. And I've been there before with my children when they were young, because we used to go play there. There's a playground actually up on the top of this hill. And I went with girlfriends, but I never went with this intention. And I had no idea what my daughter was on about, but deep in me, I knew. It was such a strange feeling. So I was so determined and happy and just marching up that hill with all my energy. And Rainey says, "Mom, slow down, take it easy." And next thing I know, there's a cow right in front of my eyeballs. His butt's right here, or her butt, sorry. And I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" So I went to go around it, and that cow looked at me in such a strange way and moved over to where I wanted to go around it. And I'm thinking, "Hey, what's going on here?" And Rainey said, "Mom, slow down, take it easy." And I realized, holy crow, you're right. So I sat down on the steps for a minute, looked at her, and then I noticed a bunch of crows. What do you call it? A gaggle of crows or something like that? I can't remember.
I think it's a murder of crows, actually.
Murder of crows.
Yes.
Exactly. That's horrible. And then I realized, this is my family. And they were all squabbling. Holy crow, and the shit, I'm sorry, that they were saying was garbage. And I'm saying, "Hey guys, smarten up. It's none of your business. I'm here, and you're not chasing me away." And we walked up further, and then I see over to my right this lone tree that's almost, it's dead. There's no leaves on it. It's all by itself. There's one crow sitting on there. And then I hear a voice, "That's you." And I look at this tree, and next thing you know, I'm sitting down and I'm crying. And my daughter looks at me and says, "Mom, what's wrong?" I said, "This is me. It's all I got." And she said, no, 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 that's your saboteur again. Be careful. And I realized, yes, you're right. But emotions were coming out so strong. It was just incredible. And I'm bawling my eyes out, and there's people coming up the path. Are you okay, lady? Can we help you? No, 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 I'm fine. And so this all happened very quickly, actually, like in a matter of a few minutes. And then I look over to where the huge murder of crows had been. They were all gone, all gone. And then we go through a fence, and there's 3 trees, 3 oak trees. And I have 2 sisters. They're younger than me. And it hit me. That's Cheryl and my 2 sisters.
Nice.
I went over to the tree that said, this is me. And I hugged it. And I felt really, really good. And I went over to the trees that were my sisters. And woo, it was creepy. It was a horrible, horrible feeling. Rainey said, where do you want to be? I'm going to go to the heart. I said, you're going to go to the heart? What do you mean by that? She said, well, this is a pregnant woman laying down. I'm going to go down to where her heart is.
Nice.
Because I thought for a minute, I'm going to stay there and examine these trees, maybe draw them. But when she said this is the heart, I'm so curious. I went with her. And that was cool, really cool. And from far away, I could see this one special tree. She's talking the whole time, telling me her experience when she first went there. And this one tree kept, well, it was lighting. It was luminous. And I couldn't stop looking at it as she's talking. She's looking at me strange. And I just said, just keep going, keep going. We got to what she called the heart. It was a place where they had at one time dug out gravel, and I guess the gravel wasn't good quality, so they let it be. And right up above it was this tree that I had seen before. I was mesmerized. And I went under it. I made a ceremony. I lit sage, and I stayed under that tree for a while, and I just felt home, absolute home. It's a tree that has huge symbiosis with ivy and mistletoe and all sorts of different kinds of plants. It's not alone.
Yes.
It's got lots of stuff happening, and it's very old, it's ancient. And my daughter had a special place where she stayed at as well. And after that, we got really playful, and it was wonderful. That's also a vortex, like the medicine wheel is. And wonderful things happen there.
Wow.
I think if you believe, but you have to believe.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you very much for sharing those stories, Cheryl. I really appreciate it, because I think in our stories is often something for someone else that can be a simple thing for someone, but for someone else it can be the whole world. And so I really thank you for sharing your journey and your honesty.